No, I didn't get an explanation as to why the page was ripped out.
That's honoring that person's legacy. And I don't care what anybody says, my 14-year-old had one.
It's way past time that we have a policy in place for when a student dies from suicide. We need to have this in place now.
Last night on Fox 13 News at 9, we showed you how a suicide victim's family, her classmates, and mental health experts are questioning a decision of a Utah school to rip out a page from its yearbook that was supposed to pay tribute to her. Tonight, we have a follow-up.
Fox 13 News investigative reporter Adam Herbitz looks at the guidelines schools try to follow when a student takes their own life and where experts say they fall short.
She wanted to be a lawyer to help people. When you meet me, you meet her. You said, I don't take this off. She could talk forever, but she could also listen. She was captivating. She would make you want to talk to her.
Marina Jensen's classmates don't just feel something's missing, they're looking at it. The only memory of her in the Bonneville Junior High School yearbook is a ripped out page.
Physically ripped out, like you can see in the book that there's remnants of a page.
That's what they're going to remember out of the yearbook. It's not going to be the writings on the pages, it's going to be the ripped out page, and their mind's automatically going to go to suicide.
The page would have shown a photo of Marina's teacher wearing a t-shirt with a tribute, but the school removed it, they say, to avoid re-traumatizing students.
In an effort to prevent what they were fearing, they created more of a buzz.
Taryn Hyatt, Utah's director of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, says romanticizing the death of a student is dangerous, but honoring their life in a responsible way is healthy. She thinks Granite School District should have done better, missing an opportunity to have an important conversation about mental health.
I do think that had they had a policy in place, they wouldn't have had to make that last-minute decision, and the photo that I've seen was in line. It was nothing that would have violated safe practice.
According to Utah State Code, districts are required to implement a program that addresses suicide prevention and suicide response. Those programs often include mental health counselors on campus and how to notify families.
How we respond to a suicide death matters because it can either increase risk or mitigate risks.
Granite School District did follow some best practice guidelines by placing mental health counselors on campus after Marina's death, sending out an email to parents, and giving students an opportunity to write letters to the family.
Initially, the school came to my home. They were very kind.
But the Granite District does not have a formal suicide response policy.
If we can get a detailed policy in place, it keeps us from having to have situations like this.
We checked with 6 of the biggest districts in northern Utah. Only Salt Lake City, Canyons, Jordan, and Davis school districts were able to send us copies of their general suicide response programs. Some are more specific than others, but none of them address whether to memorialize a student in the yearbook.
This is something we do need to do. We need to be good at this.
Bryce Dunford is the vice president of Jordan School District's Board of Education. He thinks back to 2018 when 7 students at Harriman High School took their own lives, and how members of the community came together to pay tribute.
I made a poster that said, "You have a purpose in life," because I think just a lot of the things that have been happening is people thinking that no one cares and that they have nothing to live for, but I think that everyone has a purpose.
I will never forget those who needed help and we didn't have it. We owe it to them to prevent anyone else from crying out and not having the help they need.
He says he is grateful for the chance to rethink everything his district is doing to make sure students are protected.
Sometimes even well-intended responses can cause more harm than good. It's far too important that we respond right, that we check our egos and we set all of that aside and say, look, let's admit that maybe we haven't done everything right in the past.
Alpine School District confirms it is in the process of developing a new policy that will be ready by next school year. Granite School District says it relies on national guidance as more of a procedure. rather than adopting a formal policy.
It's great that they have the toolkit and they're referencing it, but it would be nice to take it that next step further and again make sure everybody in your school is aware of what our policy is if a student dies from suicide.
There was a time when reading, writing, and arithmetic were our jam. And that's great. Now we need to get good at recognizing when students are struggling with mental health and providing the resources that they need. That's part of an education.
The Utah State Board of Education tells me it does have a model suicide prevention and suicide response policy that districts can either adopt or use as a starting point. The most important message is that seeking help is a sign of strength, not weakness, which is why we encourage you to please spread this message. If you or someone you know is having thoughts of suicide, please call the Utah Crisis Line. The number is on your screen, 1-800-273-TALK. Or if you prefer text messaging, there's also a line for free and confidential emotional support. Simply text the word hello to 741-741. If you'd like to see copies of each district's policy, we have that posted on our website, fox13now.com. Reporting in studio, Adam Herbets, Fox 13 News, Utah.
If you have a story you'd like the Fox 13 investigative team to know about, email iteam@fox13now.com or call the tip line at 801-536-1314.